Adrienne Ayers. Adrienne is a non-binary African student of ongoing revolution, born and residing on occupied Waawiyatanong land, also known as Detroit, Michigan, in the United States. Adrienne is the founder and lead Reiki teacher at Heal in the Waters Wellness, which focuses on merging wellness with revolution. Their wellness, political education, and organizing life work is housed at Freedom Growers FFG on Detroit's east side, with hope that it can serve as a guide to the African diaspora for building strategically organized futures to maintain revolution for colonized people globally. Adrienne, welcome.
Hello, thank you for that beautiful introduction. You did great with the pronunciation, no worries. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me today. So I do not have a PowerPoint presentation, but it's okay. We're going to go back to the land before PowerPoints, and we're just going to talk, and I'm just going to share, and I look forward to any questions that you may have. So I'm first going to start with what even led me to Nicaragua, and the answer is revolution. The answer is, as I'm working with the people, what guide do we even have here to step into revolution and achieve it? We don't have examples here in the United States that are clear-cut because we have yet to experience a revolution, but there are places which have, such as Cuba, such as Nicaragua. And in order to understand some ways that we can move forward, it's important to go to places that have already achieved and are maintaining what we hope to do as well, even if the route there might not look the exact same. And so we have different conditions here. And so I don't expect revolution to look the exact same. And what also led me to Nicaragua is because it's important to understand that with the sanctions and embargoes going on there, those things don't stop if capitalism is existing. You have to dismantle that system in order to help those sanctions and embargoes to be non-existent at some point. And so we have a lot of work to do and a lot of responsibility here in the United States. And so those were some of the reasons that led me there to inform my work with the people through political education and organizing back home. So the next thing I want to talk about is what stood out to me. Many things, the healthcare system, the prioritization of women, our time with the co-ops, and our time with Parliament were four major areas that stood out. And I'll do my best to throw out some statistics that I thought were really moving and empowering, as well as some things that I noticed that relate to my work and maybe some other folks and how they approach things back home. And so with the healthcare system, first and foremost, the Nicaraguan Constitution guarantees free healthcare to everyone, like every last person. And I think that's amazing. I know free healthcare is something we've been fighting for back home. Imagine being in a place that already has that. It was mind-blowing. I've never experienced seeing it in action. So they guarantee free healthcare to everyone, and they prioritize vulnerable populations. So vulnerable meaning the poor, women, children, the elderly. And Virginia talked about this a little bit as well, but 60% of the national budget goes to healthcare, but not only healthcare, also education. And so I think that's really amazing seeing the children prioritized like that, especially coming from Detroit, where our government ruled a few years ago that it's not their right to make sure that Michigan children have the right to literacy. They said that that is not their right. So being here and seeing this was amazing. Now, specifically with women in the healthcare system, I thought it was amazing that midwives are already widely included a part of the healthcare system and are often known to lead and direct the birth. Here back home, we don't look forward to going to hospitals to give birth. That's just not something that is talked about. So many people I know are like, no, I have to have a home birth. I absolutely have to, because myself or my baby might not come out alive. And so imagining a system where the midwives are there leading the birth and you actually trust the people in the hospital. That's something that stood out to me. The hospitals are also equipped to support traditional birthing methods. So traditional methods for indigenous populations, African populations, where maybe standing up is the way that you want to give birth, or using birthing stools or other various methods. You know, back home, we're used to like laying down in a bed, which is honestly, from the studies that I've been reading and hearing about, that's not comfortable nor the best way to actually give birth. And so, yeah, young mothers have a high maternity rate. The surgeries are mostly maternal, and there are 181 Casa Maternas around the country, and they're always directly next to the hospital, and they're prioritized in rural areas. And just to give you a comparison, during the neoliberal years, only 50 Casa Maternas existed, and women were told to bring their own food. So let's think about that now, where 181 Casa Maternas are actually around the country. So in 2022, only 2 to 3% of home births were reported. 98% of births happen in the hospital. I think that's beautiful. They also have 191 natural medicine clinics in 151 out of 153 municipalities. As a holistic healthcare practitioner, wellness practitioner, this is something that I would love to see here at home, that widely spread and accessible. No one at all pays for services at the natural medicine clinics, and some hospitals include access to acupuncture as well. There are a total of 77 hospitals, 1,370 healthcare posts. And I know that Virginia and Krista talked about a couple of the stats with like maternal infant deaths and how things have improved. So yeah, in 2006, just to give some more depth, there were 29 infant deaths out of every 1,000 infants. But in 2023, that number went down to a 44% reduction. 2006, there were 92.8 maternal deaths per 1,000 expectant mothers. And in 2023, that number went down to 31, which is a 66% reduction. And so a lot of people might wonder how they're able to do so much with so little. How are they able to prioritize all these women and ensure all of these people have quality access to care? So a lot of that funding comes from donations from Japan and Korea. Their budget has grown over 60% in the last 16 years. It's been really beautiful to actually go there and see some of these things. Now, with the Ministry of Women, Becca already mentioned they're number 7 in the country for gender equity, 42% of women in tech, 50% of women represented in roles deciding legislation. And I also just want to speak about how when we met with the Ministry of Women, they were really quick to explain that women's police station and the presence of police does not reduce violence, but they emphasize the importance of education to reduce violence, which is something that we see that they're prioritizing, with over 60% of the budget going to education. With my limited time left, I really just want to quickly touch on the co-ops very briefly and our time with Parliament. I cried during our time with Parliament. It was the first time I ever saw someone who looks like me in a government position, that I felt actually truly served and cared about the people. So in Nicaragua, they have 2 autonomous zones specifically for indigenous and people of African descent. Autonomous Zone 1 and Autonomous Zone 2. In those areas, African people get to create their own rules, regulations, and customs and have their own space while still coexisting with the larger country and population and still participating in general elections. African people actually have their own space to heal and be together there. We're spread out across the diaspora because of enslavement. And there's so much healing and lack of healing we need and lack of understanding from other cultures who have not experienced what we have in the specific ways that we have and to the extent that we have. So seeing that there and seeing a representative there and seeing all of these people on Parliament listening to her and no one objecting and saying, we understand racism is global. We understand that everyone needs what they need for their people and to ensure the safety of their people and that their traditions continue. It was beautiful. And so I just want to wrap up and say, along with that, the co-ops, I asked, final thing here, I asked the co-op, what was the name? I have it right here, the Foundation Among Women. said, well, how do we recreate these things to move towards revolution at home? And it's not just for us, it's to support the people back in Nicaragua, because dismantling capitalism means those sanctions and embargoes are also just being dismantled, right, over time. And they said, you have to have land, political education, and values. And those are the things that I'm taking with me to inform my work. How are we making sure that people here have a strengthened political will, have ongoing values being developed, and have access to land for food and to grow the things they need to together? How are we taking care of people in order to organize them and bring them into those things? And so those are the things that stood out to me. Thank you. I know that was a lot. All right.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. You really, your remarks touched my heart, actually.